Hello everyone, in today's video I would like to talk about the most important material in fly tying, and I would like you to take 5 seconds literally to go down in the comment section and write what do you think is the most important fly tying material you can own, and then come back and let's discuss what I think. In my opinion, the most important material in fly tying is definitely the thread, and there are various threads, various properties of those, and it's very important to know their characteristics in order to utilize maximum of them. What I mean by that is if you use, for example, this one for tying streamers, which is Trico 17/0 for tying streamers, doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it will break, it will not hold anything together. But if you take some tiny little fly and tie with it, it's amazing. You can't cinch on it super tightly as you can do with, for example, GSP, but there are some certain instances where you want to use this one. Then you take GSP and you try to cinch down very, very firmly onto, for example, deer hair, and you go through it like a butter, knife through a butter. So it doesn't make much sense to use that either. In that terms, I mean, you need to know your materials. So sometimes you may want to cinch down very tightly, as I would like to tie on my CDC for example, F-flies. I like to use GSP in that case because I can cinch it down, dive into the rakis with my thread, secure it very firmly, like literally you will bend the hook but you won't pull out the CDC. But then for the deer hair, I like to use something like this. It's nice, strong, holds firmly my materials. Now every thread has some, not every, GSP doesn't, but there is some stretch to it. If you go beyond, you'll break it. So it's very important to get like very familiar how long you can actually stretch it before it breaks, because that is what holds your materials together the best. If you stretch it and tie under that much tension, it will hold the best way your materials. If you just stretch it a little bit, then by time those materials may wiggle under it a little bit because it's not super firmly tied in. Materials are not super firmly tied in. Now, as I was saying, there are different threads. So UTC is something that lays flat if you want to flatten it. It has different diameters. Then there is Denville's waxed. It can also lay flat, which is very useful if you need it to create less bulk. Now let's go into thickness, because thickness is very important because it gives you kind of idea about strength and also about buildup, which is also very important. So sheer 8/0, as you can see here. And now look at this. I hope you will be able to see the difference between these two. So these are all same thickness according to the label, but sheer, which is green, is diameter is much, well, not much, but it's noticeably thicker, at least in person. And then there is another 8/0 from another brand, and again you will see, let me just put it next to one another, so like this, and as you can see, the white one, well, cream one, is again thicker. So the extreme standard is a thin one, and obviously it's the weakest one, even though the thickness according to the odd size is the same. So that's a big problem when you are buying online, when you cannot see thread, when you don't have experience with it, And yeah, that's it. What I like to do with threads when I buy one, I like to start a fly or just test it in hook and do this and pull. Pull slowly. And at a certain point, you will literally, if you do it slow enough, you will literally feel strand by strand breaking, and you know that like that's almost 100% of strength of your thread. So when you start doing it, when you do it a couple of times, you'll get an idea how much pressure you can actually apply to the fly, which is of crucial importance for actually integrity of your fly. When you buy a new thread, wrap it around the hook and break it.
Now, if you see Unitrico, if you use it for deer hair, it will break. It will just, it's too weak. 8/0 might work, might not, depends on the manufacturer. Not all are the same. GSP, it's like a hot knife through butter. And then some 8/0 will work perfectly well, depending on the amount of deer hair as well and how stiff deer hair or elk hair is. Same goes with 6/0 and many other different threads.
Now let's dye this fly. From the materials, we're going to need thread, it's Vivus, 8/0, and it's green. You can use any color to match your insects in your local rivers. For the dubbing, I'm going to use Squirrel Dubbing Mix that I made a video before. It's literally called Squirrel Dubbing Mix. It's a mixture of squirrel, UV dubbings, and some CDC. For wings, I'm going to use elk hair. Specifically, it's cow elk in natural. Elk hair, as you can maybe see here, has a little bit of curve to it. And I'll show you how to manage this curve to stay as it's on the pelt, all the same direction. For the legs, I'm going to use whitening hand saddle in this beautiful, beautiful color, which is kind of gray dun, grizzly dun. I don't know how you would call this, but it's beautiful. It's super soft, super wobbly in the water. It's just such pleasure to work with. Hook is Tiemco 900BL in size 12. Now let's get into tying. Secure the hook in the vise and start your thread at mark where you want your abdomen to end and where you want to place your wings later. Laying the flat thread foundation ensures that you're going to have less buildup compared to same thread when wrapped if it was kind of corded. I'll just show you that in a second. Just need some time to spin it around. As you can see, this is corded thread and it kind of makes a little bit more buildup. It's also more difficult to lay flat and nice. So these are all reasons why you want to lay your flat foundation here, because it's much more easier to control your body of the fly here. When applying dubbing for a fly like this, like caddis, I like to apply rather thick dubbing and soft dubbing noodle. So I'm just adding a little bit bigger clumps than I would usually do, and I'm dubbing them softly because I want to brush them out later. So you don't want tightly dubbed dubbing noodle. It also helps if you invert hook in your vise, because then you won't mess up with your fingers near the point over here, which can sometimes you can hurt yourself a little bit. Now when you have everything done, as you can see, it's not super tight, but it's not super thin. Just wrap it, overlap slightly, and then stop exactly where you decided to have your where you stopped your thread over here. Okay, remove the excess. What I'd like to do here, I like to lay a little bit more thread foundation here, because this is where I'm going to mount wings. After you cut your wings, I just forgot one little thing here. Alright, was mentioning, brushing out the body, making it a little bit fuzzy. You can also apply floatant to the body when you apply to your fly, because it will actually enhance buoyancy of your fly. Put the hair into the stacker, stack hair, stack it by an angle, but whatever you do, rarely the hair will come out nicely stacked in terms of, just let me remove it for a second, in terms of tips going in the same direction, the bend going in the same direction, actually, not the tips. Now, I'll show you a little nice and neat trick how to, I'll stack it again because it was not stacked well. Now, as you can see, tips are aligned, but they're not, every tip is going the other direction, which is not what we want, yeah? So what you want to do after you align your tips here, and I can see that because scales are preventing this to align properly if you don't remove under fur, which I think I did well, but never mind. Anyway, what's preventing your hair to be aligned nicely is the shape of it. It's curved. If you do it like this and you just rotate it for 90 degrees, it will help, but you can also press it gently here. Just press it very gently and it will actually align those tips. You can just rock it very gently against your table or something, some hard surface, to align them additionally if you need, and then manipulate one more time. Remove it with the hand that you want to manipulate it with, like so. When you remove it, don't hesitate to remove, just grab it. So decide on the length. So this is the length of the wing I want, slightly beyond the hook bend. So I'll cut them over here. Transfer. And remember to cut by an angle, but not this, just slightly like this. Now I'll spin bobbin counterclockwise if looked from above, bobbin holder. That will do two things. First, the thread will jump into my hand, into my material hand, and secondly, corded thread is a little bit stronger. So one rep very near the edge, as you can see, another rep slightly behind it, but still no pressure, as you can see. Now I'll move my index finger behind to support this hair over here, so when I pull upwards, if there is any torque, thread torque, to push it over the hook, I will prevent it. So I'll press index finger here and I'll pull thread up, and as you will see, I'm pulling like very hard, almost to the breaking point of the thread. Now go through the hair and go until you reach the hook. I do a couple of reps over here, just like a locking reps, and I stop now. You can see if you did your wing nicely, it should be above the hook shank or in a semicircle, whatever you prefer. This is pretty good. Now I want to attach legs. For the legs, I'll use just one feather, and this feather is such a beauty. I'll remove all the fluff from the upper section, like so. I'll leave this as a handle, and then I'll just confirm, let's say, if this length is what I need. And this is exactly what I need. I like those legs a little bit longer. Now I'll just decide how much of a feather I'm going to use, like so, and I'll place hackle pliers to the rachis, like so. I'll hold it, and because these barbs are going to, when I wrap it like so, they're going to hit the fly first, I want to get them out of the way. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna place my thumb over here and I'll push those barbs over the rachis and fold the feather. Wayne Allen has a really nice video showing you how to do this properly, because he explains everything very well. And you can see that I folded it into almost touching both sides of barbs touching. What I want to do here is I want to cut this excess here, leaving one triangle that's going to be my tie-in point. Now it's time to slightly rotate, well, spin the bobbin holder counterclockwise again, just slightly, and then I'll just attach feather over here. Now with almost flat thread and flat thread, actually, you go and you cover the rest of those butt ends, because flat thread will cover them nicely, almost completely, as you can see. I want to have rather smooth taper here, because when I start wrapping the feather will wrap nicely. So you don't need to sweep it back. You just wrap it nicely, and it's already done. And because I actually removed barbs I didn't intend to use, I can just tie off at the bare rachis, which is much easier and much nicer to work with compared to rachis that has barbs on it. The last thing to do is to add some more dubbing over here. Again, do the same as you did with body. Rather loose dubbing noodle. You want to brush it out slightly, then just check everything before you proceed. So I'll go just a couple of wraps behind, stop here, and then go to the front, sweep it back. You don't need this. I know I need to grease a little bit those knobs on the bobbin holder, and then counter spin the bobbin holder again, flatten the thread, and do your web finish knot using the tool or using your hands, whatever is easier for you. Okay, tighten the knot towards the bend of the hook. Cauterizer would be nice now. And what I like to do is put some tension onto your thread, and with blade press the thread and cut it off. If you want, you can, you don't need to, but if you want, just brush out those legs both ways, and you got yourself finished fly. So guys, hope you learned something new here. Hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe, and see you next time.